murder me.
How would you like to be murdered?
What are my choices?
Woo, there are so many methods to choose from. Alphabetically, there's asphyxiation, blade, bludgeon, bullet.
Blow to the head?
Same as bludgeon, really.
Sorry.
Drowning, electrocution, garroting, hanging, poison, strangling.
Isn't strangling the same as garroting?
Garroting is a subcategory of strangling.
I see.
Truth be told, they're both subcategories of asphyxiation.
God is in the details. Go on.
Shoot, stab,
You're up to tea.
tickle to death?
It's been tried.
Yes, I know. You're immune.
You're disturbingly good at this.
It's all I've thought about for the past year.
Murder?
Means, motive, killer, and killed.
It would defeat me having to come up with the motive alone. I mean, how many motives are there really?
5.
5?
5 for murder, yes.
I'll bet I can guess them.
Go on.
Money. Fear. Jealousy. Revenge. 5, you said.
I did, yes.
I give up.
Protecting someone you love. Was it all right, my dropping by? I mean, we had said we'd meet at the theater, the 3 of us.
No. This is better, seeing you without Tony.
Why?
There's something I wanted to tell you. When Tony let me know you were coming to London about your book, I knew I couldn't put it off any longer.
Better top this off then.
After you went back to New York last year and wrote to me, I burned all your letters. All except one. You probably know the one I mean.
I think I can guess.
I carried it wherever I went. Then one weekend, Tony and I were going away. We were at Victoria Station. The letter was in my handbag, but that day, I set my bag down to pay for something, and when I turned back, it was gone.
Did you get it back?
We reported it, and a week later, the bag showed up at the Lost and Found, but the letter wasn't in it. A few days later, I got this.
Am in possession of a letter belonging to you. If you wish its return, place £5,000 in a package and leave it for John S. King, 23 Newport Street, SW7. Done in block capital letters. Anyone could have written this. What did you do?
Nothing.
Didn't you want it back? I mean, £5,000 couldn't have made much of a difference to you.
Of course I wanted it back, but I was terrified to make a move. Then I received a second note.
If you do not deliver £5,000 to John S. King at 23 Newport Street by this Friday, the letter will be given to your husband?
So I took £5,000 out of the bank, put it in a parcel, and left it at 23 Newport Street. It's a little shop people use as a forwarding address.
And then?
Then I waited for the letter to be returned, but nothing came. After a week I went back, they said a messenger had picked up the parcel.
You never heard from the blackmailer again?
No.
Is this why you told me to stop writing?
I imagined any letter you wrote to me being stolen and read.
May I hold on to these for a while?
If you like.
You never told Tony.
No, and I never will. That night, I went to your flat to say goodbye. Tony was driving to Oxford for the weekend. When I got back here, I collapsed onto that chaise and cried for hours. Eventually, I fell asleep, and then I woke. And Tony was standing there looking down on me. He said he got halfway to Oxford when suddenly he knew he had to give up writing and take that job at your publishers.
Yes, he called me next day and said the same thing. Public relations. I hear he's very good at it.
Well, it's his great talent, charming people.
Did he say why he was giving up on his writing?
He said he wanted to become the husband I deserved.
And has he been?
I think he believes he's tried.
And that's good enough for you. That night, a year ago, I'm standing in that closet called a flat, slicing button mushrooms for the spaghetti, thinking, I'm going to make Margot tell Tony everything. Have it out with him.
You know it never could have worked.
It.
We, us.
Because?
Because it... I've told you about my aunt.
Your aunt who never married and left you everything.
She knew me very well. When Tony proposed and I was on the fence about saying yes, She was quite clear about what I should do.
Did she think marriage would make you happy?
Happier than she'd been?
So to please your rich, unmarried, unhappy aunt, who in every way but her predilections was boringly conventional and afraid of scandal, you married Tony. The consequence of which is that you are as unhappy as she was, only for different reasons. At least you got her money when she died. Why didn't you tell me about these blackmail notes when you got them?
I don't know. I was confused. I thought it might have been you.
You thought I wrote you these blackmail notes?
You were so angry with me flying back to New York like that.
Yes. Flying to New York, writing you letters every day until you told me to stop. I couldn't stay in London knowing you were trying to make a go of things with Tony. Do you know how I spent the past year? I got the cheapest apartment I could find, a 6th-floor walk-up in Greenwich Village, and I typed. Rather, I smoked and typed. Rather, I smoked and drank half a bottle of whiskey a day and typed. But the whiskey was only at the end of the day. It was the reward for my work. If I wrote 1,000 words, I could have a drink. I thought, if I don't finish this book, what was it all for? All the mess and roiling passions. So I smoked, and I typed, and I finished it. That's how I spent the past year since you broke things off. That's how I filled my days. And how do you fill yours?
I keep house. I volunteer at the museum.
Which? London has so many.
The British Museum, and the National, and the Tate, and the Portrait Gallery. I am part of a group that goes into the East End to see to women who don't have it as good as... I am mad for the theatre. Evenings and matinees, you'll always find me there, 6th row center. I have taken up Indonesian cooking. I gave up smoking, and there's Tony.
And does that fill your days?
Not one bit.
Oh,
There's the boy!
Tony, where have you been?
sorry, darling. An emergency blew up just as I was trying to leave. Mwah.
Aren't you going to kiss me?
I was observing the formalities. First the wife, then the lover.
You and I were never lovers.
Quite right. A dozen dinner dates does not a lover make. So, what have you two been conspiring about, eh? Plots have I laid, inductions dangerous?
Don't fix yourself a drink. You've no time. The play starts in less than half.
Yes, I know, and I can't go.
What?
But the play's a murder mystery, and it's supposed to be dreadful. We'll have such a good time.
I know, and I'm sorry, but I've got to revise the jacket copy for your book.
I thought that had been done months ago.
It was, but the boss says it needs to be completely redone. It's got to be ready first thing tomorrow, so I have no choice.
Can you dash off something in the morning?
In the morning, you and I have breakfast with the editor of the Times Sunday Supplement. Then a meeting about the cover art. I told them you hate the colors. Lurid, you called them.
Not lurid enough.
They're showing you some new ideas based on the same look.
Woman, corpse, blood.
It's what sells.
Lovely. When's the BBC interview?
Tomorrow evening at 8 o'clock. Yes, very good time slot. You'll be listened to by every wife, widow, and pensioner in the country.
My readership.
And then we're having supper after.
Where would you like to go?
Where would you like to go?
Darling, Potiphar is joining us for dinner tomorrow night.
Oh, Lord. Who's Potiphar?
The BBC Talks director. Dinner with him is the price of that awfully good time slot. I know you loathe him, so I explained you were otherwise engaged.
Oh, well, thanks for getting me off the hook. I will now spend a lonely evening at home, so I won't see you at all tomorrow.
The studios are just across the park. We'll all have a drink here before we go. That all right, Maxine?
Sure, I'm easy.
Ooh, I'd better call and get you a taxi.
No, don't bother. We'll put one up at the corner.
All right, but you better go now then.
Come on, let's make a run for it.
What would you like us to do with your ticket? Try to give it away?
Sell it. Have a drink on the proceeds.
Oh.
Should be good for 2 drinks. Margot, your handbag.
Mwah.
Ta-ta.
Come on. Good night, Tony.
All right.
Be good.
I'll try.
Mr. Fisher?
Stephen Fisher, yes. Captain Lesgate.
Yes.
Do come in.
Why, thank you. I'm a tad early. I hope you don't mind.
No, not at all. You keep me on my toes. Did you have any difficulty finding your way?
No, none at all.
Drink?
I'd love one. By the way, how did you know my car was for sale?
Ah, your garage told me.
Ah,
I stopped in for a fill-up and saw it on the blocks. I said I was looking for something like it, and they gave me your phone number. It is still for sale, I hope.
if you've got £1,100, it is.
I refuse to discuss the price until you've had at least 3 brandies.
Yes, well, I warn you. I drive a hard bargain, drunk or sober.
Cheers.
I can't help but think that I've seen you before somewhere.
It's funny you should say that. From the moment I opened the door, I thought, wait a minute. Lesgate? No, not Lesgate. Swan. C.J. Swan. Or was it C.A.?
C.A.?
Ah, you were at Cambridge. Must have been 20 years ago. Oh, you wouldn't remember me. I think you only came my last year.
Yes, of course. But I don't remember a Fisher.
That's because my name's not Fisher. It's Wendice.
That's right. Tony Wendice. What was all this about Fisher then?
What's all this about Lesgate?
Got bored. Thought it was time for a trade up. You like it?
Love it. Would you like a cigar?
Ah, no, I'll stick to my pipe if you don't mind.
Oh. Well, that's one habit you've changed. At college, you used to smoke rather expensive cigars. Here, look at this. Oh, it's a photo of us all at a reunion dinner, and there you are, chewing on a huge Havana.
Oh, must be 10 years ago. The first and last reunion I ever went to. My God, what a murderous thug I look.
You do, rather. Of course, I always remember you because of the college ball. Well, you were the treasurer the year the ticket money was stolen, weren't you?
Yes, nearly £100. I kept it in a cash box in my study. In the morning, it had gone.
It was the college porter, of course.
Yes, poor old Alfred. They found the box in his back garden.
But not the money.
No.
What are you doing nowadays,
Oh, little of this, little of that. What about you?
I work for a publishing house.
Ah, books, eh? Must do well by it. You've a very comfortable setup here.
My wife has money.
Ah, yes. People with capital don't realize how lucky they are. I'm resigned to living on what I can earn.
You could marry for money.
Yes, I suppose. Some people make a profession of that.
I know I did.
You mean the girl you fell in love with just happened to have money of her own?
No. I mean, I married for money quite deliberately.
Oh! Well, that's putting it rather bluntly, isn't it?
Have I shocked you?
No. No, I admire a man who knows what he wants.
To know what you want to pay for. That's the thing. Everything has its price.
Yes, well, I haven't a great deal of
I
time.
was telling you about marrying my wife.
Yes, your profession.
Oh, I had a profession before that. A vocation, really. I was a writer.
Ah, would I've read anything you've written?
Not unless you had a job rejecting manuscripts.
I see. So you gave it up. Before or after you married for money?
Oh, after. My wife was very taken with the idea of being married to a writer. There's something about a tortured novelist burning with things to say and looking damn good while he's not saying them. Full of promise which didn't pan out.
Oh. Well, she hasn't left you because of it.
She nearly did. Oh, not because I gave up on the writing. Get you another?
Here, lend me. You've got that groggy leg.
Thanks. Move the bottle over here. Would you like to hear about it? How my wife nearly left me.
Your party, your brandy.
It is, yes. I used to go around with a woman, another writer, more successful than me, by which I mean she was successful. In those days, she'd written only short stories, thrillers. Naturally, I pretended to look down on her stuff. I was a serious writer. About the same time, I met this other girl. Very pretty, with a nice inheritance in the offing. We got married and set up here. Very placid and pleasant. I wrote like a demon, but I couldn't get any, what the Americans call, action. Lots of activity, though. I was always going off to do readings of this or that unpublished novel. Oxford, Cambridge. If it were a slow season, I'd go to Edinburgh. Lord, I went to Wales once. There were always people in the audience to listen to me. Women, mostly, young. My wife professed not to like that.
With or without reason.
With very good reason. You see, long after I'd realized that I wasn't getting action, I still enjoyed the activity. The travel, the stipend, the adoring faces, the charming room at the College Inn or the department chair's guest cottage. I thought I was being very clever, pulling the wool over my wife's eyes. I figured she wouldn't catch on. But you know what happened?
She caught on.
No, I did.
To what?
She was having an affair. Oh, the usual tells. She lost weight. There were phone calls that would end abruptly when I came into the room. Then we had a row. I wanted to go to Oxford for the weekend. She didn't want me to. I went into the bedroom to pack, then suddenly the phone rang in here. It all sounded pretty urgent. After she rang off, she suddenly was rather keen that I should go to Oxford after all. So I packed my kit into the car, drove off, parked 2 streets away, and came back. 5 minutes later, she came out and took a taxi. I followed. She got out in Bywater Street, an address I knew well. I looked in through a window, and what do you think I saw?
I've no idea.
My wife, in the arms of a woman.
Oh.
Can you guess who the other woman was?
Oh. The female writer of thrillers.
Well done.
Bit of a coincidence that, don't you think?
By no means. I had introduced them. My friend, my wife, and me, blissfully unawares, going off on my little jaunts to play with young poetesses and disappointed faculty wives.
Oh. Well, I can't imagine how you must have felt.
Try.
Well, I would have been in a bloody rage. Felt like giving them both a good bashing.
Ah, now. I suspected you and I would be similar in that respect. We don't like women enjoying the upper hand, do we?
Well, Or did you burst in, or?
Oh, no. I watched. They were cooking spaghetti over a gas ring. It's funny how you can tell when two people are in love. They were sharing a cigarette, just like in the movies. The two of them seemed to be in the middle of a serious discussion. Then it became an argument, then tears, then my wife left. No one ate the spaghetti.
Well, what did you do?
I went down to a pub at the end of the street and proceeded to drink heavily. I wondered, was she going to leave me? What would happen if she did leave? There was no question of me leaving her, no. I'd grown to depend on her. All these expensive tastes I'd acquired. I sat there and thought of 3 different ways of killing the other woman. I thought of a few more of killing my wife. That seemed by far the more sensible route. Margot and I had just made our wills, leaving everything we had to each other. Hers worked out at just over £2 million. When I returned home that night, there was Margot, right where you're sitting asleep, that pillow stained with tears. I looked down on her for a long time. Then her eyes opened, she looked up at me, and I told her my writing days were over. As fortune would have it, a publisher I knew had offered me a job. He was never going to publish my books, but he thought I might be useful in public relations. Well, I threw myself into it, and in 3 months, I was assistant head of publicity. In 6, I'd taken over the top job. They can't do without me now. And irony? I'm in charge of the sales push for the other woman's first novel. She's just arrived in London to promote it.
She left England?
It turns out the spaghetti was a farewell dinner. They'd broken it off that night. There were letters, though, after, from New York. My wife burnt all of them. All except one. That one she would transfer from handbag to handbag. It was always with her. That letter became an obsession. I had to find out what was in it. So I stole it.
You stole your wife's love letter?
I even wrote her 2 anonymous notes offering to sell it back.
Why?
Malice. I was hoping it would make her come and confess everything, beg my forgiveness, but she didn't.
Right. Did she pay up? Or?
£5,000, yes. But I kept the letter.
Oh, I'll get it.
Go on, read.
Very, explicit.
Yes. Anyway, they must have had the fear of God put into them, because after that the letters stopped. It's funny to think that just a year ago I was sitting in that pub actually planning to murder my wife. And I might have done it too if I hadn't seen something that changed my mind.
What was it you saw?
I saw you.
What's so odd about that?
The coincidence. Only a week before, I had been to a reunion dinner, and the fellows had been talking about you. How you'd been court-martialed during the war, then a year in prison? Oh, that was news. Mind you, at college we'd always said Swan would end up in jail. That cash box. Everybody knew Alfred didn't take that money. You did.
Yes. Thank you for the drinks. I take it you won't be wanting the car after all.
Don't you want me to tell you why I brought you here?
Yes. Yes, I think you'd better.
As I say, it was quite a coincidence seeing you in the Grape and Vine just down the street from that flat. I asked about and found that you rented a room above the pub. You weren't Lesgate yet. The owner of the Grape and Vine knew you as Price Jones. I like the hyphen. Would you mind passing me your glass? Thank you so much. You see, since that first night in the pub, I've been following you. I was hoping that sooner or later I might catch you at something, so I could, well, not to put too fine a point on it,
Blackmail me.
influence you. After a few weeks, I got to know your routine, which made it a lot easier.
Rather dull work.
It was a bit at first, but you know how it is. You take up a hobby, and the more you get to know of it, the more fascinating it becomes. You became quite fascinating. In fact, there were times when I felt that you belonged to me. You moved from the Grape and Vine and took up lodgings in South Kensington under the name Asprey. 6 weeks later, you disappeared, owing 6 weeks' rent and £50 borrowed from your landlady. If you want another drink, would you mind putting on those gloves? Your new lodgings were in Belsize Park. There, Mr. Asprey became Mr. Waterhouse. Mr. Waterhouse left those lodgings owing 15 weeks' rent and somewhat richer for his brief encounter with a Miss Wallace. Miss Wallace was in love with you, wasn't she? I suppose she thought you were growing that handsome moustache to please her. Poor Miss Wallace. By summer, you moved to another flat owned by a Mrs. Van Dorn, whose late husband left her 2 hotels and a very large apartment house. That's where you became Captain Lesgate. The only trouble is, Mrs. Van Dorn does rather enjoy being courted, and she's quite expensive. Perhaps that's why you've been trying to sell her car for over a month.
Mrs. Van Dorn asked me to sell that car for her.
I know. I called her up earlier today. She only wanted 800.
Where's the nearest police station?
Opposite the church, 2 minutes walk.
I suppose I go there now.
What would you tell them?
Well, I shall tell them that you brought me here in order to blackmail me into
Yes.
murdering your wife.
And if you did, I'd tell them you came here tonight, half drunk, and tried to borrow money on the strength that we were at college together. When I refused, you said something about a letter belonging to my wife. As far as I could make out, you were offering to sell it to me. I gave you what money I had, and you gave me the letter. It has your fingerprints on it, remember? Then you said if I went to the police, you'd tell some crazy story about my wanting you to murder my wife. But before we go any further, consider the inconvenience. I'd have to tell the police that Captain Lesgate's name is really Swan. The tricky thing there is C.A. Swan died 4 years ago. Yes, I found the obituary. Motoring accident, body burned beyond recognition. I take it whomever you put behind the wheel was your first victim.
What do you mean first?
Well, I mean to say I assume he was the first, just as I assume the second was Miss Wallace. Oh, she was in all the papers. Middle-aged woman found dead from drug overdose. No one knows who gave the stuff to her, but we know, don't we? Poor Miss Wallace. And now you're planning to marry Mrs. Van Dorn, am I right?
Very smart, aren't you?
Not really. I've just had time to think things out. Put myself in your position. That's why I know you're going to agree.
Why?
For the same reason that a donkey with a stick behind him and a carrot in front goes forwards and not backwards.
Tell me about this carrot.
£5,000 in cash.
For murder!
For a few minutes' work. At no risk. I do think a honeymoon with Mrs. Van Dorn would be quite preferable to the hangman's noose. £5,000 should see you married and safely on the continent. You'll find it makes such a difference to have money in your pocket.
This £5,000. Where is it? Is this the £5,000 she paid for the...
Mm-hmm.
How much is in there?
The full amount. Oh, I don't think you'll do a runner. Not with Mrs. Van Dorn in your future and me knowing about Miss Wallace and the rest.
When is this to take place?
Tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night, not a chance!
It's got to be tomorrow. I've arranged things that way.
Where?
Approximately right where you're standing now.
How?
Tomorrow night, at exactly 8 o'clock, you will enter the house by the street door. The street door is always unlocked. You'll find the key to the front door under the stair carpet, out in the hall on the 5th step.
The 5th step.
That's the one. Use it to unlock the front door, and go straight to hide in the alcove.
What if she's standing right here?
She won't be. She'll be listening to a radio program. The radio is in our bedroom. At exactly 10 minutes past 8, that phone will ring. It will be me, telephoning from the BBC studios across Regent's Park. That's my alibi. The radio program's an interview with the female novelist. I shall be there with her.
All right, then.
I shall use the phone in the control booth. I shall dial this number. There's no extension in the bedroom, so when the phone rings, she will come in here to answer it. You stay hidden in that alcove until she answers the phone. When you've finished, pick up the phone and give me a soft whistle, then hang up. When I hear your whistle, I shall hang up.
What happens then?
Make a mess of things. Upend this coffee table, which knocks over the cigarette box. Knock over the chairs and that table, but leave it all here.
As if I left in a hurry.
Precisely. Now, the French doors. If they're locked, unlock them and leave them open. Then go out exactly the same way as you came in.
By the front door.
Correct. Now here's the most important thing. As you go out, return the key to the place where you found it.
Under the 5th stair carpet.
Yes. The police will assume you entered by way of the French doors. You thought the flat was empty and went to work. She heard something and came in here. You attacked her. When you realized you killed her, you panicked and bolted into the garden, leaving your loot behind.
Just a moment. I meant to have entered through the French doors. What if they're locked?
She often takes a walk round the garden before she goes to bed, and she usually forgets to lock those doors. That's what I shall tell the police.
Well, she may say that...
But she isn't going to say anything, is she?
Why can't I just leave by way of the French doors?
There's an iron gate to the street. It's locked at night. You'd have to climb over it, so if anyone saw you, you'd likely be followed.
Right. So, I leave the flat. I put the key under the stair carpet to go out by the street door. When will you return?
About 11. I'll bring the other woman back here for a nightcap. We shall find her together.
You've forgotten something. When you return, how will you get in?
I'll let myself in.
Ah, but your key will be under the stair carpet. The other woman is bound to see you take it out. That will give the whole show away.
No, it won't be my key under the stair carpet. It will be my wife's. I'll take it from her handbag and hide it out there just before I leave the flat. She won't be going out tomorrow night, so she won't miss it. When I return, I'll use my own key to let us in. Then, before the police arrive, I'll find a moment to take her key from under the stair carpet and return it to her handbag.
How many keys are there to that door?
2 keys, just hers and mine. Maida Vale 0401. Oh, hello, darling. How's it going? Dreadful. Good. Does Maxine hate it as much as you? Make a bet on who you think the killer is and let me know who wins. Hang on, darling. Someone's at the door. Careful. You might be seen from there. Sorry, darling. False alarm. No, go. Go. Enjoy yourself. Bye-bye. Well,
Do you enjoy thinking up ways to kill people?
I never have to think up ways of killing people. Ways of killing people bubble up in my head all the time. I'm simply putting my natural instincts to good use.
Can anyone be a killer?
Oh, yes. Given the right circumstances, any of us, even the nicest, most passive milquetoast, can be a killer. Note that I did not say murderer. Murder is a legal term. One can kill with moral intent. That's what we call it in war.
I'm not sure you need to get into all that.
It's true.
She's right, it is.
I know, but it's a talks program about thrillers, not moral philosophy. They've got Bertrand Russell for that. Read that last question, would you, darling?
Is there such a thing as a perfect murder?
Ooh.
And if so, can you cite an example?
If I could cite an example, it wouldn't be a perfect murder.
Ah.
There are people who have committed murder that walk amongst us every day. On the street, in tea shops, at the pub. A murderer might be sitting on your sofa or lying next to you in bed.
That's very good.
Thank you.
Right, and that's the lot.
No, will they ask what you're working on next? They always do on programs like these.
Oh, the voice of authority.
I can say yes, I am, but it's early days.
Is that true?
Yes.
Well, tell. Come on. You know you want to show off.
Okay.
Ah.
A woman, she's married, is supposed to meet her lover at a hotel. But she knows her husband's hired a private detective to follow her. So when she arrives, she doesn't go straight up to the room. She goes to the bar and orders a drink. She wants to figure out who the private detective is. A man comes in, orders something. The wife notices him looking at her. He's the only man in the bar. She starts a conversation with him. She's making sure the detective knows she's spotted him. If she spotted him, he'll have to call off the chase. They chat. The man leaves the bar, leaves the hotel. The wife goes up to the room. Next morning, her husband tells her his private detective saw her go into that room. The wife is stunned. The man she talked to in the bar didn't follow her up to the room, she's certain. How did she get it so wrong?
The private detective was a woman. The wife assumed the private detective was a man because private detectives are always men. She noticed a man in the bar looking at her, but she didn't notice if any of the women were.
Is that it?
It will be now. Do we have time for one more?
A quick one.
Me too.
Darling, I can't seem to find my latchkey. May I borrow yours?
Mine?
Yes.
What if I go out?
I thought you were staying in this evening.
Why should I? The two of you are going to be out and about at the BBC, having a late supper at the Savoy Grill.
Join us. Meet us at the Savoy. We'll get tight as a drum.
You're sweet, but no. Mr. Potiphar always manages to put his hands where he shouldn't, no matter how far away we're seated.
It's true.
What will you do instead? Go to a movie?
I suspected you would listen to Maxine's interview.
Would you like me to?
Be nice to know how I come across.
Your voice can get brittle sometimes.
When?
When you're nervous.
I'm never nervous. Give me a shot of gin just before they turn on the microphone.
Mm-hmm. Whoa! I'm so
Tony,
sorry.
It's okay.
I'm a
That'll
fraud.
leave a state.
It's a radio interview. No one will see it.
You reek of gin. The interviewer will think you're a dipsomaniac. I've got some remover in my basket.
Is the remover the little brown bottle?
Yes, I think it's in here somewhere.
Actually, I think it's in the bedroom.
Is it? Oh, come on, I'll get it out.
What's in the remover?
Acid, naturally.
Oh, good. Make sure it burns an enormous hole.
It'd be easier if you took it off.
I suspected you had ulterior motives.
Stop.
You're the one who said take off your dress.
I was talking about the spot.
Out! Out, damn spot!
Oh! Would you look at that, my latchkey? It was in my coat pocket the whole time.
Mystery solved.
Yes, but now we've got to run.
The studio isn't far, is it?
No, just cross the park. It's 3-minute walk if we're brisk.
Anything you want me to slip into the interview?
What, like a fond hello to Margot Wendice, famous shut-in? Find a way to sneak button mushrooms into one of your answers.
Button mushrooms.
Better quit.
You're on.
Good night, darling.
Have fun.
Night, sweets.
Be brilliant.
After you. Ta-ta.
This evening, our guest is Maxine Hadley, author of Your Death is Necessary. It's being advertised as a thriller. Is it a thriller?
Well, my publishers call it a thriller.
It certainly looks like a thriller from the dust jacket.
Lurid, isn't it?
I suppose the first thing really is to define what we're talking about when we use the word thriller.
I'd say they're novels that thrill.
Wilkie Collins called his books sensation novels.
Yes, he did. Because they cause the reader to feel the sensations of dread, horror, suspense. But I think all novels should have those sensations, at least to a degree.
What's the difference between a thriller and a mystery?
In a murder mystery, the question is something like, who killed Lord Frumfrey in the library? In a thriller, the questions are, will this or that character commit murder? What's the killer after? Will he kill again?
And you've got to have a good villain.
A good villain is essential.
Although in my own experience, I don't think I've ever encountered anyone who's an out-and-out villain.
I have.
Really?
Oh, yes. So have you. You just didn't know it.
You may be right there. So then, what are the essential elements of a good thriller?
Well, it should have at least one murder, preferably more, in ascending levels of violence. There must be suspense. Questions must be posed, events foreshadowed, and of course, the stakes must be high.
High enough for one of the characters to commit murder, I should think.
Who are you? What are you doing here?
Motive is everything, even if the murder is
I'm afraid I've come to kill you.
Is an unplanned
Is this a joke?
No, it isn't. I was paid £5,000 for your murder. But,
Don't come nearer!
A murder of opportunity is a question.
sorry, what I was going to say was,
Opportunity.
don't actually have to go through with it.
Situation,
Killing you.
timing.
I mean, I've got my money. Your money, actually.
Satisfying.
My money?
There are
The
so
£5,000 you paid for the letter you never got back.
story take place
The blackmail.
or a country car.
Pretty neat trick, you must admit. Getting you to pay for your own murder. The thing is, it's all planned out to the minute. It's got to take place at precisely 10 after 8.
10 after 8.
There's a word
Because of the alibi.
between a murderer
You hear it?
and a telephone.
The radio?
And one who's denied.
Don't you want to know who paid me?
Yes.
Yes. Fingerprints, ballistic,
Who?
photograph, all these are
Yes,
attended.
well, the price for that is £10,000. Not too much to find out who it is once you're dead. Don't touch that phone!
The police are just around the corner!
Don't touch it!
My- But then,
Hello! Ah! 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 Police! Get the police! Tony! Tony, I said you come on now, quickly, please. A man attacked me. He tried to strangle me.
you like a metaphor.
No, he's dead.
No, good.
Tony? Are you still there? No, I am. I'm listening. I won't. anyone, I promise. Only be quick.
Experience.
For a time, until it builds up again.
Serious.
Very naturally.
Oh, Jack, but my
Well, they did write letters, didn't they? To Scotland Yard, taunting the I said not to write. At least not in the convention.
you're a strong-jawed fellow, eh?
No strong jaw fellow.
What about strong-jawed women?
I'm not sure I know what you mean.
Strong woman. Each you can go.
Oh my God.
What do you do? Do you like to roast torture scenes?
I was brought up on thrillers of the kind where bulldog villain gets to step up the villain and either he's drugged or decapitated. But I don't like it. I get tired of the fact that the hero and other people get to bang on the head with a perfectly just a bump on the head.
It's all right.
You're banged on the head.
It's all right. It'll be all right. What happened?
He tried to strangle me. He got something round my neck. It felt like a stocking.
The character building into a considerable extent.
The scissors.
Dialogue, which of course I think is some of the best dialogue
I stabbed him.
any pro today.
Well, I think
And you also like to make jokes.
I can't help making jokes.
Oh.
It's a fault. And it gets me.
The blades must have gone right through.
The question
Cover it, can't you?
or rather the lack
Yes.
of status in being a
Yes, of
so-called
course.
thriller.
The first thing, really, is to define
Did
what
he-
we're talking about.
What are you doing?
If you write
I'm looking for an aspirin. My
does, and like Eric Ambler does, perhaps, in which violence is the background, just as love might be
I'll
the
get you some
background
water.
of the ordinary or the great kind of novel. The mystery story is
Slightly
He must have
you can write a
broken
long,
in.
very lousy,
I wonder what he was after.
When will the police get here?
Did you call them?
But a very
No, you told me not to speak to anyone. Hadn't you better call them now?
In a minute, in a minute.
Yes, I know that.
I'll get dressed.
most.
Why?
There's no attempt.
Oh, they'll want to talk to me.
Writer.
Right.
You yourself
Yes.
was just a writer. And that your hand was, I think,
Well, yes.
Is Maxine still at the studio?
I told them to tell her there'd been a minor emergency.
Where your publisher knows you're any good.
Tony,
quite
The publisher.
why did you phone?
That's what gets
I'll tell you about that later. You said he used a stocking?
I think it was a stocking or a scarf. Isn't it there?
No, but I expect the police will find it.
Confidence and there's copy.
Go and change. I'll phone them right away.
Well, I lived many years in England, but I don't think I could write about it in any realistic way. Of course, now half the writers in America live in England.
Definitely true.
As far as my material is concerned, I'm afraid I get mine by going to places and taking down copious notes because I can't remember anything.
I get to go back to the villains.
Of course. The difficulty is to set in oneself and to be able to persuade the reader that your villain is not to be pitied for being a sick man. It's difficult to depict somebody who is remorselessly vibrant without being a psychopath. On the other hand, if you create pity for them at once, it's difficult, and that's what I mean about villains. They're very...
Hello, operator. Give me the Maida Vale police, quickly.
Side.
He may be very...
Yes, hello. A ghastly accident has occurred. A man's been killed.
He may be...
Wendice, 61A, Charrington Gardens. About 10 minutes ago. He broke in and attacked my wife. A burglar, or so it seems.
Well, that's just
How long until someone can get here?
that talks about violence.
2 minutes.
So on and so forth.
Good.
It seems to me.
No, we won't touch anything. Thank you.
To set it up, a man has gone into this girl's bedroom, having overheard her conversation at the blackmailer. She brought out a small automatic up from her side. I looked at it. Oh, guns, I said. Don't scare me with guns. I've lived with them all my life. I've used an old Derringer, single shots, the kind the riverboat gamblers used to carry. As I got older, I graduated to a lightweight sporting rifle, then a .303 target rifle, and so on. I once made a bull at 900 yards at open sight. In case you don't know, the whole target looks like the size of a postage stamp at 900 yards. A fascinating career, she said. Guns never settle anything, she said. They're just a fast curtain to a bad second act.
I think that's rather well put.
It's at least a far more sensible point of view than the one which some writers put forward in their book, where people are shooting each other so much and so often that you need a program to tell who's in the act and who's a spectator.
Do you think there's such a thing as a perfect murder?
Absolutely. On paper, I could plan a murder better than most people. But I doubt I could carry it out.
Really?
Oh, I might be able to carry it out, but in stories, things turn out as the author plans them to. In real life, they don't. I'd make some stupid mistake and not realize it until the end when I saw that everyone was looking at me.
Yes, quite. Can you give our listeners an example?
Let's see. A housewife makes dinner for her husband. Spaghetti and mushrooms. The husband eats the spaghetti and dies, apparently of a heart attack. As his body is being taken away, something falls from his trouser cuff. They test it. It's full of poison. What fell out of his trouser cuff? A button mushroom.
A button mushroom. Well, now I must remember that the next time.
That'll be the police. Margot,
Yes?
did he say anything?
No.
No, I'm sorry, but my wife can't see anyone just now. I'm afraid not. Sorry, goodbye.
Who was that?
Another reporter?
How many is that now?
The fourth, so far. I'll get it.
Margot! Did he hurt you?
There's just some bruising on her throat.
Jesus! Why didn't you tell me what happened?
Look,
when they said it was an emergency, I figured it was something like a bathtub leak. Reading it in the papers this morning.
Yes, sorry. I should have phoned your hotel. But the police kept us rather busy last night. They didn't leave until past 3. Would you like coffee? I could make some.
No, thanks.
I'd best, change. Keep Margot company, would you?
What's the matter?
Oh, didn't you hear? I stuck a pair of scissors into a man last night. I'm a murderer now.
No, you're not. You defended yourself.
I did, yes.
I'm proud of you.
Are you?
Of course I am. If you hadn't done what you did, you... The papers say it was a burglary.
Do they?
Well, isn't that what it was?
Well, that's not what he said.
Who?
The man who attacked me.
He spoke to you?
Oh, yes.
What did he say?
He said he'd been paid £5,000 to murder me.
What?
He said, I've got my money. Your money, actually.
The £5,000 you paid for the letter?
He called it a neat trick, getting a person to pay for her own murder.
Did he say who sent him?
We never got that far. I was wondering if it might have been you.
I'm sorry?
I said you could have written those blackmail notes. And when you got the money, you could have used it to pay him to kill me.
Just why should I do that?
Revenge. For my breaking things off, it is one of your 5 reasons, isn't it? Revenge. And it's the sort of thing you think of. Plotting how to murder people, working it out. He said the murder was planned. It was planned to take place at precisely 10 after 8. It had to take place precisely then because the alibi was the radio.
Why would his alibi be the radio?
Well, that's what I couldn't figure, but then I'm stupid. He didn't say it was his alibi. He said it was the alibi. It didn't hit me until I realized I could hear your voice. I tuned in just as I said I would. He had to kill me at that moment precisely because that was when you were on the Talks program, an alibi of 3 million listeners.
Margot,
and then I thought about your letter that I couldn't destroy. It was so passionate, uncharacteristically so. I started to wonder if you'd written about us that way for a reason, so that the letter couldn't help but be read as incriminating. No one reading a letter like that could possibly believe our friendship was innocent. Not after you described it that way. It would be unmistakable that we'd been lovers, and I would have no choice but to buy it back. A boringly conventional woman like me, so fearful of scandal. Oh, you were right. £5,000 didn't make much of a difference to me, but it can make quite a difference to a struggling writer living in a 6th-floor walk-up.
Just so I've got this straight. I wrote you a love letter so that I could blackmail you for £5,000, then use that £5,000 to have you killed?
Does it work?
It's good! May I steal it?
It's all yours! Even the blackmail notes that I showed to you, you actually managed to make me give them back to you.
Back to me? What, you think I did that to cover my tracks?
Where are they now?
At my hotel.
And probably hard to find.
Do you know how crazy you sound?
I killed a man last night!
I know. Didn't think you had it in you. I see now that you do. What did the police think when you told them this man said he'd been paid to kill you?
I didn't tell the police.
Why not?
Because if I told them that, I'd have to tell them the rest. About the money, the letter, us.
Did you tell Tony?
The only person I've told is you.
Why?
To see how you'd react.
Are you satisfied?
Not really.
Margot? Can you get it?
I'd rather not right now.
I'll get it then, shall I?
Mr. Wendice?
Yes?
My name is Hubbard. May I come in?
Yes, please.
Mrs. Wendice, I am Chief Inspector Hubbard.
Inspector, this is Miss Hadley, a friend of ours.
Maxine Hadley. You and Mr. Wendice were together last evening.
Yes.
Why was that?
Why was what?
Why were the two of you together?
Well, Miss Hadley was being interviewed for a talks program at the BBC.
Mr. Wendice works for my publisher.
Oh, you're an author?
Miss Hadley writes murder mysteries.
What can we do for you, Inspector? We gave all the necessary information to your people last night.
Oh, yes, I'm sure, but I'd like to get a few things firsthand. May I?
Of course.
I should be going.
Miss Hadley, we may want to go over the odd detail with you later. Could you give me your address?
I'm staying at the Ritz.
Write it there for me, would you? Room number and all that.
Okay.
Is this your first visit to London?
No, I used to live here.
Oh, for how long?
3 years.
Where?
Chelsea. Bywater Street.
Off the King's Road?
Yes.
That's just down from the Grape and Vine, isn't it?
If you say so.
When did you leave London?
A year ago.
Thank you.
I, may drop by later, if that's all right.
Yes, please do. I'll see you out.
No. I know the way.
Shall we, sit?
Thank you. That was a very nasty experience you had last night, Mrs. Wendice.
Do you know yet, Inspector, who the man was?
We're uncertain as to his real name. He had several. Price Jones, Asprey, Waterhouse. The one he was going by recently was Lesgate. Had you seen him before, Mrs. Wendice?
No, of course not.
Photographs from the morgue. Do you recognize him?
Yes.
You do? From...
From last night.
Oh, no. No, I meant from before.
I told you I'd never seen him before.
Oh, yes, of course. Sorry. How about you, sir? Ever seen him?
No.
Mm-hmm.
No, at least there is something familiar about him.
Oh,
Yes, but for whatever reason, I'm picturing him without a mustache.
so you think you may have met him?
Oh, no, not met him, no. I'm sure of that, but,
Saw him?
saw him. Yes. I'm thinking it was at a railway station.
Mrs. Wendice, would you show me where you were last night when things happened?
I was in our bedroom listening to the radio. I came in here to fix a drink.
Did you switch a light on?
No.
Would you show me where you were when he attacked you?
Here?
You said you went to fix yourself a drink
Yes, but then I went to the desk.
after you fixed yourself a drink.
I didn't fix myself a drink
Well, why not?
because the phone rang.
And this was your husband calling?
Yes.
Why were you calling your wife, sir?
Yes, why did you phone me?
I wanted to see if I could change your mind about going to supper. Miss Hadley and I were going to the Savoy. My wife had elected not to join us. I felt guilty about you spending the evening alone.
Right then. So, you come in here, you go to the drinks table, the phone rings, you go over to the desk.
Yes, I went to the desk. I picked up the phone. That's when he attacked me.
Attacked you how?
He got something round my neck.
And by something, you
It
mean...
felt like a silk stocking or a silk scarf.
And what happened then?
He got the stocking or whatever it was around my neck, pushed me over the desk. I remember feeling for the scissors.
Were those scissors usually on the desk?
No, usually they're in that mending basket, yeah, but I'd forgotten to put them away.
So, you forgot to put them away, but you remembered they were on the desk?
I didn't so much remember, I felt them.
So you felt for the scissors.
I felt around and my hands found the scissors and I stabbed him with them.
Yes, I see. How do you suppose he got in?
Through the French doors there?
Why do you think that?
Because
Because when I got back, those doors were wide open.
Were they locked last night?
They were locked when Miss Hadley and I left for the studio.
Are you quite sure?
I always lock them when I leave the flat.
Then how did he get in?
We assume. Well, he must have jimmied the lock.
Oh, the lock was carefully examined. It's quite undamaged, and there was no glass broken.
But that doesn't make sense. Darling, did you open the French doors last night?
once to get some air
When was this?
after he attacked me.
Not before.
No.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Mrs. Wendice, why didn't you ring the police immediately after this happened?
I thought my husband would call them.
And it didn't occur to you to call for a doctor?
No.
Why not?
He was dead.
How did you know?
It was obvious.
Did you feel his pulse?
No.
Did you check to see if he was breathing?
I didn't want to get near him. He had just tried to kill me.
Inspector, the French doors. If the man didn't get in that way, how did he get in?
As a matter of fact, we're quite certain he came in by your front door.
But the front door is always locked.
Margot, did you open the door and forget to lock it after we'd gone?
No.
Are you quite certain you didn't?
I'm positive.
How many keys are there to the front door?
Only 2. Mine was in my handbag and Tony had his with him.
That's right, I did.
Do you employ a charwoman?
Yes, but she hasn't got a key. I'm always in when she comes.
What makes you think he came in through the front door?
Oh, his shoes. It was raining last night. The ground was soaking wet.
muddy. If he had come in through the French doors by way of the garden, he would have left footprints all over the floor. He didn't leave any because he'd wiped his shoes on the street door mat.
Well, how do you know that?
Oh, it's a fairly new mat, and some of its fibers came off on his shoes. Also, there was some tar on that mat, and some of that came off on his shoes as well. There's no question about it.
Wait a minute. Wait, I think I've got it. Darling, do you remember the time when your handbag was stolen?
Yes.
Well, wasn't your key inside?
Hang on, I'd like to hear about this.
Oh, my wife lost her handbag at, where was it? Victoria Station? It was that weekend we went down to Portsmouth to see Peggy's new boat. We were at the station restaurant, and I said something like, "That fellow there seems awfully interested in you, remember?"
I don't remember a man, but it was at Victoria where I lost my bag.
That photograph you showed us, that was the man.
And did you get your bag back?
From the lost and found office about a week later.
Was anything missing?
Just a few pounds.
Nothing else was taken?
No.
No papers or letters?
No.
Was your latch key in your handbag when you lost it?
Yes, but it was still there when it was found.
Ah.
Whoever stole the bag could have had the key copied. He could have had a duplicate key made and returned the original to the bag.
So he could have stolen your handbag, taken your key, copied it, and then used the duplicate key to open your front door.
Yes, he could have.
But of course he didn't.
But why not?
Because if he had, the duplicate key would have still been on him when he died. But there was no key found when we went through his pockets.
No key?
So we're back where we started.
I would like you both to make an official statement before the inquest. The station is only 2 minutes from here. Perhaps you could come now.
If that's what we should do.
It won't take long. Mr. Wendice, I wonder if you might look out the street door. There was a small group of nosy Parkers gathered there when I came in. People read in their papers about a murder and they line up like it's Madame Tussauds.
Of course.
How much does he know?
What?
Your husband. How much does he know about you and your friend, Miss Hadley? She wrote this letter to you from New York.
How did you get that?
It was found on the dead man in one of his pockets. It makes for rather salacious reading. Any idea how it ended up on the body?
No.
When you lost your handbag at Victoria Station, did you also lose this letter? Mrs. Wendice, your husband will be back any moment.
Yes, that letter was missing when I got back my handbag.
I asked you that before. You lied. Why?
I didn't want my husband to know it.
Ah, Miss Hadley. Forget something?
I did, as a matter of fact, my gloves.
Yes, I was wondering when you might be back for them. How is it out there?
Oh, we've got a full-blown mob. If we're to go to the station, you'll have to have your men disperse them.
It would be simpler to give them the slip by way of the garden. Unless they've gathered there too. Would you mind looking?
Of course, Inspector.
All right, Miss Hadley. I got rid of Mr. Wendice for you. You came back because you wanted to tell me something? Is it about this?
How did the police found it on Lesgate?
Lesgate.
The man Mrs. Wendice killed. Mrs. Van Dorn let us into Lesgate's flat this morning. Behind the mirror, we found £5,000 in sealed banknotes. We traced their serial numbers to your bank, Mrs. Wendice. You took out those same banknotes 6 months ago. Would you care to explain how Lesgate ended up with them?
I told you before, I never met any man named Lesgate.
6 months ago, he was calling himself Price Jones and living above the Grape and Vine off Bywater Street.
Did you happen to frequent the Grape and Vine when you lived there, Miss Hadley?
If the Grape and Vine was the closest purveyor of liquor, it's a good bet I did. But I didn't know a Price Jones or a Lesgate or whatever he was calling himself. All I know is that someone was blackmailing Mrs. Wendice. After she lost that letter, she received 2 notes. This is one of them.
And where's the other?
At my hotel, I couldn't find it.
How did you get them?
Mrs. Wendice showed them to me day before yesterday.
You paid the blackmailer £5,000, didn't you?
Yes.
How did you get him the money?
I sent it to that address, like the note said to.
And you got back the letter?
I never got it back.
Is that why you met with him last night?
What?
To say you paid him the £5,000 like he wanted, now give back the letter?
I didn't speak to him.
The evidence suggests you were in the middle of entertaining him.
This is
You
ridiculous.
say you came in here to make yourself a drink, but my men found 2 cocktail glasses, one with your lipstick and fingerprints on it, and the other had been wiped clean.
Why would I do that?
To make sure no fingerprints could be retrieved from it. So it wouldn't look like you and Lesgate were having drinks just before you killed him.
Why would I be having drinks with him in my pajamas?
Ah, but you weren't wearing your pajamas. When the police arrived, you were dressed in a blouse and slacks.
I changed. That was after Tony. Tell him.
Darling, what's going on?
The inspector is trying to say that I killed that man intentionally. It was self-defense.
Unfortunately, there were no witnesses, so we've only your word.
That's not true. I heard it over the telephone.
What exactly did you hear, Mr. Wendice? Did you hear anything that indicated a struggle was going on?
What I heard was consistent with my wife's explanation.
So, all you really know is what your wife told you. You suggest that this man came to burgle your flat, but there is no evidence of a burglary. He didn't even have a bag to put things in. You told us he came in by way of the garden, but we know he came in by your front door.
But he can't have got in that way. That door is always locked. There are only 2 keys. My husband had his with him, and mine was in my handbag here.
You could have let him in.
You're not suggesting Margot let him in herself.
It appears to be the only way he could have entered.
Don't you even believe I was attacked? How do you think I got these bruises round my neck?
You could have caused those bruises yourself.
Oh.
A silk stocking was found under the desk with 2 knots tied.
That
in it.
must have been the stocking he used.
We found its twin, balled up inside some crumpled paper at the bottom of your wastebasket. The paper had been torn from a magazine that was on your coffee table. Can you explain why your attacker should do that?
No?
Those stockings were yours, weren't they?
No.
We know they were. One of the heels had been darned with some silk that didn't quite match. We found a reel of that silk in your mending basket.
That's because I was mending some... There was a pair of stockings in here, I am sure of it.
Let's take a wide view, shall we? Lesgate stole your handbag at Victoria Station and discovered the letter in it. He decided...
Hang on. What letter? What are you talking about?
The letter from Miss Hadley that Lesgate used to blackmail your wife. She paid him £5,000 for it, but he didn't return the letter. You arranged to meet with him here last night, which is why you elected not to join Miss Hadley and your husband at supper. You let Lesgate through the front door. You gave him a drink. You argued. You killed him. The story that he was a burglar who attacked you is sheer fabrication.
Tony.
I'm telephoning our solicitor. Oh, I've heard of the police deliberately planting clues to make sure of a conviction. But
Mr.
really,
Wendice!
no! Your men were in here for hours last night. They easily could have taken the stockings out of that basket and done whatever they wanted with them. They probably wiped the fellow's shoes on the front doormat as well.
Mrs. Wendice, I must
He
advise
said
you
he'd
that
been paid to murder me.
Could you repeat that, please?
Lesgate. Whatever his name was, he said he'd been paid £5,000 to murder me. He offered to tell me who it was paid him if I gave him another £10,000.
Another £10,000?
Yes, he said the radio was the alibi. Then he put that stocking round my neck to strangle me, and I stabbed him.
So Lesgate never got the chance to tell you who paid him to kill you?
No.
Pity.
It's the truth.
Let's go quietly. Shall we, Mrs. Wendice? Else I shall be forced to call the constables.
Margot. Your handbag.
Mr. Wendice? Will you be joining us?
Of course. Yes.
Just wondered.
The Home Secretary is at this hour deciding if there are sufficient grounds to justify a reprieve for Mrs. Margot Wendice. At the Old Bailey 6 months ago, Mrs. Wendice was found guilty of murder and sentenced to death. The trial, which featured lurid revelations regarding Mrs. Wendice and a close female friend, was notable for the accused claim that the murdered man had been paid to kill her by a person or persons unknown. The jury returned a verdict of guilty in under an hour.
Hello. Yes? Oh, Fitzgerald. Yes, I'm glad you called. If your paper still wants to publish the letter, I shall have to ask for £500. Yes, it is a lot of money. But the cost of my wife's defense was very high. Yes? Well, how would you like your wife's dirty laundry read by millions of people, Yes, think it over. Only I'm going away the day after tomorrow. South America. I may never come back. Excuse me, I shall have to ring you later. Come in.
Have you heard anything?
Your timing is impeccable. She's at the Home Office. Our solicitor has taken her. He says the chances of the Home Secretary granting clemency are slim to none. I expect someone will call shortly with the decision.
Why didn't you go with her?
She wouldn't allow it. I wanted to go to the prison this morning to say goodbye, but she wouldn't see me.
She's bad at goodbyes.
Have you seen or spoken to her?
We haven't said a word to each other since she was arrested.
I suppose you'll be going back to New York now. I must say it's been admirable of you, staying on after the trial, through all the appeals, right to the end.
I'm not much in demand at present.
Yes, rough stuff, your book being pulled. I suppose I should say I'm sorry. All those copies they printed before the scandal hit, taken off to a warehouse to be pulped? Oh, I should have offered you a drink. Bourbon on the rocks?
Yeah, sure.
So, what will you do now, eh? Write another thriller, or have you done with that? I doubt I'd know how to sell it to the reading public. Not that I'd have to. I'm out of a job too, you know.
Yes. But you don't have to worry about being comfortable. Not after tomorrow morning. But I am working on something right now, since you asked.
Ah. Is it a mystery?
Yes and no. I'm still teasing out the plot, but I don't think some of it holds up. The story's about a woman who kills a man to get back a letter from him. Only she doesn't find it, even though the police find it quick enough in one of the dead man's pockets. If you had just killed a man to get back a letter, wouldn't you go through every one of his pockets to find it? I know I would. Especially if my husband were hurrying home from the BBC and he was the person I was trying to keep the letter from. Yet she doesn't.
You're not taking into account panic.
Oh, I'm allowing for panic, confusion, the race against the clock. According to the police, she had the presence of mind amid all that to find a stocking, tie knots in it, then hide its mate. If she had the presence of mind to do all that, why didn't she have the presence of mind to find the letter? Then there are the stockings. She comes up with the idea to make it look like Lesgate used one of her stockings to strangle her. But then she has the matching stocking to deal with. She can't leave it in the mending basket. It's the matching stocking that proves the other stocking is hers. She should destroy it. But she doesn't. She hides it in the wastebasket. Badly. So badly the police couldn't possibly overlook it. When the quickest and by far simplest way to get rid of that stocking in an instant would have been to...
What?
Put a match to it. The stocking would have gone up in a flash. Poof.
Would it?
Any woman knows that. Men don't, though.
No, I suppose we don't.
I want to show you something.
It's the blackmail note.
The second one. Margot gave both of them to me.
At the trial, you testified you couldn't find the other one.
I lied. I kept thinking it was a clue, that it would lead to something. I even went to the address on it, 23 Newport Street.
So did the police? They turned up nothing.
I know. I still figured I could find a use for it, though. And I have. My fingerprints are on that note. So are Margot's. And now, so are yours.
What do you plan to do with it?
Tell the police I found it in a pocket. My fingerprints and Margot's are on it because she showed them to me. We both testified to that. But your fingerprints are on the blackmail note because...
Yes?
You wrote it. You sent it to Margot. You were the blackmailer, not Lesgate.
So what's the deal? I go to the police and confess, or you give them that note with my prints on it? I'm not sure I see the advantage. If you give that note to the police, you implicate me. If I confess to the police, I implicate myself. Either way, I lose.
That isn't the deal.
What is it then?
I give this note to the police, or you give me half of Margot's money.
Oh.
As you said, my book's rotting in a warehouse somewhere waiting to be pulped. No respectable publisher will give me a tumble now, not after that trial. I could write under a pen name in a few years, but not for the sort of money I would have made if Your Death is Necessary had been a bestseller. And it would have been a bestseller.
Would have been, yes.
So you see, I could use a bit of money about now.
Yes, but for you to get that money, I have to get that money. And that means Margot has to be executed.
She does, yes. But you know what I find interesting? You're not arguing the point. You're not saying you didn't hire Lesgate to kill Margot.
I don't think it necessary. As far as I can make out, you just ginned up the same hysterical story that Margot told to the police when she was arrested. Only with me as the villain instead of you. The police didn't believe it then, and neither did the jury.
No, they thought it was a desperate ploy from an unstable woman.
More to the point, there was no evidence to back it up.
There is now.
Inspector?
Oh, Mr. Wendice, sorry to disturb you. May I come in?
Of course.
Miss Hadley?
Inspector?
Maxine, tell Inspector Hubbard about the blackmail note.
Blackmail note?
Yes, show it to the inspector, will you? Oh, dear. Now I've got my fingerprints on it. Oh, sorry.
How did you get this?
I found it.
When?
Today.
Where?
In a pocket. Isn't that what you said, Maxine?
You testified at the trial that you'd made a thorough search for that second note.
I thought I had.
But when you find it today, you come show it to Mr. Wendice? I wouldn't have thought the two of you would be so chummy.
We are old friends, regardless.
Yes. Artistic people. This note is very similar to the first note. I'm not sure what it has.
Inspector, I have
Before you
reason
came, Inspector, Miss Hadley was spinning a story. Yes, apparently I paid Lesgate to murder my wife because I was driven to homicidal fury by the relationship detailed in Miss Hadley's letter.
Oh, yes. The letter.
Oh, the way all of you go on about the letter. Like little boys with a dirty magazine.
Some of it was rather graphic.
It certainly didn't help Margot's case.
Margot's case came down to three things. The letter, the stalking, and the key. Lesgate's supposed to have been blackmailing her because my letter was found in one of his pockets. But what if it was Tony who was blackmailing her? What if it was Tony who stole her handbag?
And why should I do that?
You wanted to find out who was writing to her? When it turned out to be me, you plotted your revenge.
But the letter was found in Lesgate's pocket.
You could have planted it on him.
When did I do this?
After you returned from the studio and before the police arrived.
And how does my revenge plot fit into this?
Oh, the revenge plot was the original plot. Lesgate was supposed to murder Margot.
And how did I persuade Lesgate to commit this murder he didn't commit?
With the 5,000 pounds Margot paid for the letter you didn't return.
Right. I see. So, that's the letter. What about the key? Oh, Miss Hadley does this for a living.
No, that's quite.
You told Lesgate you'd hide the key outside the flat. Above the door or under a pot somewhere. Lesgate lets himself in, then when you...
Miss Hadley, if Lesgate had used Mr. Wendice's key, it would have still been on him when he died. Besides, how did Mr. Wendice get in when he returned?
Margot could have let Tony in.
But Mrs. Wendice didn't let her husband in. He let himself in with his own key. Both of them testified to that.
Your move, Max.
Lesgate could have taken the key from wherever Tony hid it, unlocked the door, then returned the key to its hiding place before he came in.
Whew! It all sounds very involved. I must have been planning this for years.
1 year! Since you discovered Margot and I were lovers.
Maxine, I'm going to say something now that no one was ever supposed to know. When I got back here that night, I found Margot kneeling beside Lesgate's body. She was going through his pockets. She kept saying he had something that belonged to her. A letter. She was hysterical. I had to calm her down. So I pulled her from the body, which is when the police arrived, and that's why she didn't retrieve the letter.
And you're telling this story just now?
I seem to be.
Inspector, I suppose I've committed some sort of crime admitting that.
All of this has been out of my hands for months now. There's been a trial and an appeal, and now the Home Office.
What about the Home Office?
Do you know yet if a decision has been made?
It's why I came. The Home Secretary has denied her request. The hanging will go forward tomorrow morning.
Oh, no.
I'm very sorry, sir. May I walk you out?
You've been very clever, Tony. You plot like a master and you improvise brilliantly, but you have made one mistake. Just now. What will happen when Margot hears about this?
About...
Your story. Margot tearing through Lesgate's pockets trying to find the letter.
She'll deny it.
She'll change her will. You'll have done it all for nothing.
Do you think they'll let her? Let Maxine see Margot? Can she be kept from visiting her in prison? I don't want my wife to be made upset.
Your wife isn't at the prison. She's likely just left the Home Office.
Oh, right, yes, but when she gets back...
Tell you what, I'll ring up the warden and put a word in his ear. Stop Miss Hadley from making a scene.
Thank you, Inspector. You're very kind.
No, not at all. By the way, there are some items belonging to Mrs. Wendice at the police station. Her gloves, handbag. You are to come and collect them today.
Well, can't they be sent here?
I'm afraid not. They have to be signed for in front of the desk, Sergeant.
But must it be today?
I'm afraid so, sir.
Ah!
Is this yours?
What is it?
Somebody's latchkey. It was lying on the floor just here.
No, I've got mine here.
It must be mine then.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, it is. It must have dropped out. There's a small hole here.
Aha.
That's the trouble with these keys. They're all alike. Well, I don't suppose we shall meet again.
I suppose not. Again. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I'll see myself out.
Fitzgerald, Tony Wendice. Oh, you have, eh? Well, I'm afraid the price has gone up. I now want £1,000. Yes, I know what I said earlier, and I'm raising it. And I want your answer now. Yes or no? I thought you'd see reason. Have the check sent in care of my solicitor, and he shall see that the letter's delivered into your grubby little hands. Yes, you too. Goodbye. I'm coming. I am coming. What?
May I have some water? Please. We were at the Home Office. They had taken me there for myself just after breakfast. I was kept in a room while they discussed the case. I sat there thinking, they are not going to hang me tomorrow. They can't possibly. The Home Secretary won't allow it. And then the door opened and they told me to come in. My solicitor wouldn't look at me. The Home Secretary was very brisk, very efficient, clemency denied. But I suppose that was too efficient because he added that only a brazen woman would have the nerve to request clemency after such a sordid trial, called me wanton, a degenerate, and it was over. My solicitor still refused to look at me. They took me back to the car. I got in the back seat. There were only 2 guards. One in the front to drive, the other in the back with me. They're going to hang me tomorrow? They are going to hang me and no one will help. And then I noticed the door was unlocked. They have no problem believing a woman is capable of committing murder in cold blood, but not that she tried to escape when she is to be hanged the next morning. The car pulled away, started back to the prison. The streets were crowded. Traffic. They're going to hang me tomorrow. I kept looking at the lock on the door, thinking one of them's got to notice. The guard sitting in the back with me will see. He'll reach over, he'll lock it. And he did it. We stopped at a light, Regent's Park. It was my only chance. I grabbed the door handle, pulled, and I ran across the park.
But why in God's name did you come here?
Where else could I go? Please, for God's sake, you have got to help me. Tony, say something. What if that's the police?
Hello? Yes, Sergeant. Yes, the inspector already told me. Is it really necessary that I come pick them up today? No. I'll be right there. That was the police station. They have your handbag and other things to be picked up. They want me to come get them.
They didn't say anything about me?
Apparently word hasn't reached them yet.
Tony.
I'm improvising. We've got to get you away. We'll get you out of the country. The car is parked at the garage at the corner. I shall bring it round and drive us to Portsmouth. Peggy's boat is docked there.
How are we to manage a 55-foot yacht?
Peggy has a captain, and we shall pay him however much he wants, and if the police ask, he can pretend he didn't know who we were.
But Tony,
Darling, it's our only chance. They're going to hang you tomorrow. I shall go round and pick up the car. It shouldn't take more than 5 minutes.
Well, shouldn't I go with you?
No. You might be seen. You stay here. Don't answer the phone. Don't answer the door. Promise?
Margot!
What the hell are you doing here?
You first!
I should think you'd be tired of asking housebreakers what they're doing in your flat.
I ran away.
Does Tony know?
Tony's getting me out of the country. We're driving to Portsmouth. He's gone for the car. He'll be back in a minute.
God.
Well, who's with you?
Mrs. Wendice.
I got away.
You did, eh? Well, somebody will be given a very strong talking to, but never mind about that now.
Aren't you going to arrest me?
You will be doing us all, especially yourself, a great deal of good by keeping quiet and behaving as you're told.
Let's get you into your room.
No. Tell me what is going on. Especially as this isn't the first time you've been here today. This is your color. The ice hasn't even melted yet. What were you doing?
Trying to save your life.
By having cocktails with my husband?
By trying to blackmail him. Not that it worked. I told you it wouldn't.
It was worth a try. I thought if I could get Tony's fingerprints on the blackmail note, he'd pay me not to give it to the police. If he did that, it would be as good as a confession.
But he didn't, and it wasn't a confession.
What do you mean?
Quiet now.
was that?
Well, that was your husband.
But why couldn't he get in?
He hasn't got his key.
But he took his raincoat. He always keeps his key in the pocket. Why wouldn't you let me answer the door?
What did he say when he left?
He told me to keep out of sight. Don't open the door, don't answer the phone.
Then he thinks you're just following his instructions.
Now he's gone to the police station where he knows your handbag is waiting and in it your key. Hubbard here. He's realized about his raincoat. He came back and couldn't get in. He's probably on his way to the station now. Give Wendice those gloves and the handbag and make sure he sees the key inside the handbag. Better make him check the contents and sign for it. What if he wants his own key and raincoat? Tell him I've gone to Glasgow. Just call me back when he leaves the station.
Why do you think Tony's gone to the police station?
Because he's realized he's picked up the wrong coat with the wrong key.
I don't understand.
Mrs. Wendice, what I have to tell you may come as a shock. We strongly suspect that your husband plotted to murder you.
How long have you suspected this?
Miss Hadley came to me this morning with, what did you call it, a plot snag?
The key. Call it my writerly obsession with tying up loose ends. It always bothered me that no key was found on Lesgate's body, not even to his flat. Most people carry a key on them. Why didn't the police find one on Lesgate? So I went to the inspector.
Miss Hadley seemed to be accusing Scotland Yard of doing a poor job. Well, I couldn't let that stand. So I decided to search this flat one more time to see if I could find Lesgate's key. It could have fallen out during the struggle and ended up someplace we hadn't looked, in a gap between two plot planks, behind the baseboard. But first, I would have to gain access to the flat, so I went to the police station, got your handbag, and lifted the key.
Stole it.
Quite. Then I waited for Mr. Wendice to go out this morning, and I tried to get in.
Tried?
I never got in. The key that was in your handbag didn't fit the lock.
Why? Has Tony changed the locks?
No.
It wasn't your key.
Where is my key then?
It took me just half an hour to find it. It was hidden under the 5th stair carpet in the entry hall.
Wendice told Lesgate that he would leave your key under the stair carpet and to return it to the same place when he left. But as Lesgate was killed, Wendice naturally assumed your key would still be in one of Lesgate's pockets. That was his mistake. Because Lesgate did exactly as Miss Hadley suggested. He unlocked the front door and returned the key before he came in.
And it's been out there in the hall ever since?
It's still there.
So the key that Tony took out of Lesgate's pocket and put in my handbag was...
Lesgate's own key.
We took the key that was in your handbag to Mrs. Van Dorn's this morning. It opened the door to Lesgate's flat.
Does this mean I'm free?
Actually, no. This is all supposition.
What?
Yes, I'm afraid we've yet to prove anything. Right then, start the ball rolling. Mr. Wendice just left the police station with your handbag. He's on his way back here.
Did he tell them I was here?
He's smarter than that. He knows that if the police come bursting in, you'd know it was him who tipped us off and changed your will first thing. When he comes back, he will use the key from the handbag. When that key doesn't fit, he'll realize his mistake, put 2 and 2 together, and look under the stair carpet.
But if he doesn't get that key, you can't prove a thing.
True. But if he opens that door, we shall know everything.
What's that?
Oh, my men upstairs. There are 2 up top and 3 on the street. Quiet now. He's returned.
What if you're lying?
What?
What if everything you have been saying, is just to keep me here until more police come and arrest me.
There aren't more police
You just
coming
said
to
you had men
arrest
up
you.
top, men in the streets. What if this is all just another lie?
What are you
Do
doing?
you want me to hang tomorrow? Tony is driving me to Portsmouth.
You'll never reach Portsmouth. He's probably planning on running a traffic light that'll make a constable stop the car. That or a road accident, the kind the driver survives and the passenger doesn't.
No, Tony doesn't think that way. You're the one who thinks that way.
Margot? Margot, open the door!
Why should I trust you? You know why.
Margot, it's Tommy!
Send the car.